Hey, what's going on, baseball fans? I know it's been a little while since we've had an interview, but we got one today with Joel Pelland from Peak Performance Chicago. But before we get to that interview, we're going to give a little love to Diamond Kinetics. We're going to talk about the Swing Tracker by Diamond Kinetics. It is the most precise and complete swing analysis and development tool available today. Whether you're a player, parent, or coach, you will find a wide range of resources to help you achieve your goals. Swing Tracker has dedicated iOS apps for both baseball and softball. And let me tell you, we've been putting out this ad for a little while now, and this thing is super popular. Like, people are loving this.
Yes, I mean, anything Diamond Kinetics right now is on fire. They're doing a fantastic job. The work they're doing with USA Baseball is awesome. They're using it in-game at Perfect Game, getting real data on at-bats as they happen in the games. They're posting the data, bat speed, all of these things on the Jumbotrons in these stadiums that are playing these games. This thing is phenomenal. You do not want to miss out on one of these.
Yeah, so jump on the bandwagon. Go to diamondkinetics.com. Use the promo code GYP10 to get 10% off. You're saving money. You're making yourself and your team better. What is there to lose?
It's a win-win for everybody. And for less than $100 with the promo code, you will get some fantastic information to help your players.
Well, what a better way to start. Hold on. How do I want to say that? It's a great way to start us back with our interviews with a nice conversation with Joel Pelland about mindset and, just the mental part of this game. He's a former collegiate athlete that went through some detrimental injuries, career-ending injuries that would, set a lot of people back on the mental game, but it kind of put him on the path to working in this career of helping people get through it. He's a teacher, he's a coach, and he just, he has a company. It's called Peak Performance Chicago, and he coaches people online wherever you're at. And there's just so many nuggets in this. It's an awesome interview. I'll give you a heads up in the very beginning. The reception was a little choppy, but we got it figured out. So about 2 minutes in, we finally figured that out. But you're going to get so much out of it. So many things we talk about, from nutrition to sleep to how leadership qualities, how to start your morning. There's so much stuff we get into. I can't even name it all right now.
The topics are fantastic, but we go in depth, and we don't always go in depth in some of our interviews. So this is a little different than some of the other podcasts we've had. Joel does a fantastic job of diving deep into these topics and really explaining his perspective and his thoughts and his ideas and why he believes why he does. Not just say it, but why he believes it, which I think is ultimately important for anything that anybody's preaching in a way.
Yeah, if you like what Joel's saying and you want to get some coaching by him, great thing he's going to be doing for our listeners for the next month is he is going to offer 50% off of your first session. So, I mean, big savings for this, 50% off. All you have to do is send him an email and say, hey, heard you on this podcast. I'm very interested. I would love to have a session with you. You see what he's all about. And if you like it, I'm sure you probably will. You can go back for a second session. But that first session will be 50% off. Make sure you take advantage of that. I mean, it's only 30 days. So jump on that now. If you're a coach and you're listening to this, jump on that for your entire team. You're going to love it. Enjoy the episode. Hey, Joel, thanks for joining us, man.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Looking forward to talking to you. It's been a little while since we've done an interview, so we need a nice interview like this to talk about the mental side of what we talk about week in and week out. So they're always good episodes when we have this conversation.
Yeah, no, I hope I can deliver for you.
Well, I'm sure you have no problem, Joel. It's Tyler. Appreciate you taking the time. I know we kind of went back and forth a few times on messages to get this set up, and really appreciate your patience to get this worked out so that we could get this in.
No problem, guys. Pleasure's all mine. I'm looking forward to it.
Joel, we always like to kind of start back with the beginning a little bit and talk a little bit about your story growing up or playing baseball and whether it's in high school or whatever. So if you want to talk us through a little bit about through that journey and what that was like for you.
Yeah. So, I mean, I can't remember ever not playing baseball growing up, all the way from T-ball to high school. Grew up in the west suburbs of Chicago, in Carroll Stream, and I went to Glenbard North High School out there, and played varsity baseball my junior, senior year. Was fortunate that had a great group of guys on the team as well, so we got to experience some success there, conference championship, regional championship. And then after high school, I played baseball at Central Michigan University. So had the opportunity to play Division I baseball for the Chippewas. And it was I think about it all the time. It was a great opportunity. It was a great time, great campus, great school, great program. Don't have enough good things to say about CMU and the program. I was only there for 2.5 years though. I ended up tearing my labrum, my bicep tendon, and my bursa sac in my shoulder. And yeah, so I rehabbed it. I tried coming back, and just never felt the same. And looking back at it now, I think a lot of it was mental. I just think the thought in the back of my head of letting it loose again and everything tearing and having to go through surgery again and rehab again kind of was haunting and kind of slowing down my progress for what it could have been. So I ended up leaving Central Michigan the spring of my junior year and did firefighting for a little bit. And then ultimately went back to school to finish my education degree and started teaching and coaching.
So, I mean, that had to be just heartbreak going through that. I love to ask about the changes from high school to college in terms of, what was the biggest challenge for you? Obviously, that's a huge challenge right there. Can you talk a little bit about mentally what that did for you? I know you said that was a little bit of a mental challenge for you. And what did you have to help you kind of get through that?
Yeah, it kind of came out of nowhere. I came in relief and was throwing the best I'd ever thrown. We had a great pitching coach that year that really kind of helped, add some velocity, control over some pitches. And I came in relief, and the next morning I couldn't lift my arm, couldn't lift it up. And it was one of those things, as an athlete, as a player, you kind of know what is just normal wear and tear, soreness, and then you kind of know, this ain't right, something's not right here. And that was kind of the feeling that I had when we were on that trip. And it was tough. To be honest with you, I was defeated mentally. I got hurt. I went through rehab. I see other guys, get hurt and go through rehab, but when you see it, it's a little different than actually experiencing it. And when I came back to rehab and throw back to school in the fall, it was just something was different. I didn't feel like I could really let it loose. And there was fear there, and I didn't really have someone that I felt that I could talk to, as far as trying to get through those mental hurdles and how to progress mentally through things like that. And kind of ended up ending my career. So in a way, I was defeated by it. And it's one of the things that I try to, I work with a couple of kids that have been through injuries, and I try to help use my experience to kind of help guide them through so that they don't end up with the same defeat that I did.
One thing I kind of am interested in, and I've kind of wondered this for a while, because I don't know too many people who went through it. What is it like being injured in college like that? What is the support for you as a student athlete? What is that experience like? Because, I know for some athletes, they kind of, it puts them, behind academically. They get kind of put into a corner. They don't really know what to do. They're not on the field. Their buddies are still playing. I mean, what was that part of your life like, honestly? I mean, you go as an athlete, but you still have this whole other side of it. So what was that balance like for you?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And from my experience, my injury came towards the beginning of the season, and then I just didn't travel with the team after that injury. So I was able to pretty much stay on my academics pretty easily since I wasn't traveling with the team anymore. And then I didn't have until after the season was over. But by the time I went to doctors and tried rehab and had MRIs and all that kind of stuff, it kind of taken most of the spring to figure out what had been done. And so my rehab came over the summer, and then returned in starting the throwing program. And I would say too, like, this was back in 2004, 2005. So the mental game, I don't think was, I mean, I know it wasn't as prevalent or as out there as it is now. Mm-hmm. And I think that made a difference too, because there was no sports psychologist to talk to. There was no mental game coach. I mean, I don't really even think I remember talking about the mental game at all when I was in high school,
right,
or college. And no fault to anybody else. It just wasn't really talked about. It wasn't really studied. And there's really no supports for that. It was just kind of, hey, you got to get through it and figure it out.
Yeah, I can. As you were talking about that, because when you said 2004, 2005, so I'm guessing we're right around the same age, and I'm thinking to myself, like, yeah, this was definitely not something ever, because we never really talked about this.
Well,
stuff.
and honestly, like, I'm listening to your injury, and I'm thinking not a lot was done, because nobody really knew about torn labrums and anything about that until after Drew Brees for who was he playing with back? Was it the Chargers, when he tore his shoulder?
Yeah.
That was when torn labrums finally got like some press and some real knowledge kind of circulated. So I was thinking in my mind, like, man, I wonder what type of programs they really had for somebody like you, because before really Drew Brees, nobody really knew, honestly, about
Right.
how devastating that injury could be, because he had basically the exact same thing you're talking about with the bursa sac and everything.
Yeah, no, there really wasn't much out there. I was fortunate that I did have my surgery done by Dr. Andrews
Really?
down in Alabama, and I still remember him coming out and being like, normally we don't see an injury like this in a person, as young as you. Normally it's a guy that's been thrown in the minors for about 9 or 10 years. So that was kind of also like, geez, I did a number on this. How am I going to come back from it?
Wow.
Well, you had said in the beginning that you can't really remember a time when you weren't playing baseball. So throughout all of that time, you've had to have learned many lessons. So talk about some of the life lessons that you learned playing the sport, and what are some of those lessons you still use today in your professional life?
So I was never like what people would dub like the naturally gifted athlete. I always felt that I had to work and work harder than everybody else. And I think that was, I didn't play varsity as a freshman or anything like that. And I think that kind of hunger to want to be great really helped me through to get to where I got. And it's something that still serves me to today, is just the want to be the best, knowing that you're not, but working to be. Is something that I think I've taken from my experience playing baseball. Another lesson that I can think of is the game or life in general doesn't owe you anything. You got to go out there. You've got to earn it. You've got to put the work in, and learn from your mistakes as you go, and keep moving forward as best you can. And then if I had to say one more, it would probably be accepting and excelling at your role. And I didn't take that from baseball. I actually took that from football, playing in high school. I played football, basketball, and baseball in high school. And playing football, I played soccer all the way up to 8th grade. And then I made the switch to football my freshman year of high school. And I got hurt my freshman year. And then my junior year, I went out there and I switched positions from tight end because we had a really good couple of good tight ends in front of me that I didn't think I was going to be able to beat out. So I switched to a different position, free safety. And I didn't start a game my entire high school career at safety. The main reason probably was because I couldn't tackle very well. But one of the things that I could do was I could read a quarterback and I could read routes real well. And so they would just put me in on passing downs, or, second and long situations. And, so we'd go from a 4-4 to a 4-3, and I would take a linebacker out and go to the free safety spot and just kind of read the quarterback and try to pick passes off, which I did pretty well. And without starting a game, I started senior night my senior year. That was the only game I started. But I was able to be an all-conference, all-area football player 2 years in a row.
Wow.
By accepting my role and excelling at it. I knew I wasn't a good tackler. I knew there was other guys that were better tacklers than me on defense. But I also knew that I was good at what I could do, and I really worked and focused on that and was able to, put up some decent numbers and get the votes. So that's one of the things I would say to players is no matter what you're in, excelling at the role that you're given can lead to good things.
That's fantastic. Me and Dan were having a conversation just last week about, we're coaching 6, 7, 8-year-olds this fall, and it's like they're young, but it's still never too early to teach them what having a role on a team is, and whether it's you're the second baseman or you're the pinch hitter or whatever. And Dan was talking about growing up playing high school, he was the courtesy runner for the pitcher, and he knew when the pitcher was up to bat, he had his helmet on ready to come out to be the courtesy runner because he knew that was his role. And I think kids, once they understand what is expected of them, then they can excel. When they don't have a clue of what coaches really want from them, that's when they kind of get lost, and then they don't understand, why am I sitting? Why am I not playing? But I'm sure when there was a sack on first down, you were ready to run out on the field. People were having to hold you back from getting onto the field in that second and long situation, right?
Yeah. No, I think that's great. I think, like you said, I think teaching those kids at an early age, having roles and being good teammates. And I mean, as a baseball coach now, I can think of a couple of guys that was their role, was to be our courtesy runner for our catcher or our pitcher and steal bases and score runs for us and win games. Yeah. Right. You got a guy who your catcher gets a single or a double and you run for him, and you got a guy on second base. He's there for a reason. He's there to score runs. He's there to get from second to home plate, and he's got to work at his craft and work on reading pitchers and work on timing and different tells and all that kind of stuff, and make sure you're taking good angles, and all those things add up to runs, and runs win games.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love it because we had a kid that came and filled in for our summer team, and he's the fastest kid that we had, really. And he'd never played with us. We just needed an extra player. I knew he was super fast. In the same inning, I used him as my courtesy runner for my pitcher, and he came around to score on a hit from first base, a double from first base. And then later that inning, I entered him then into the game for another kid as a true position player.
As a pinch runner.
As a pinch runner, he came back around to score again. He scored twice in the same inning and never had an at bat. And parents were like, "Wow, that's amazing!" You know what I mean? So, and he was loving life. He's playing with the older team and things like that. So, not to keep talking about things like that, but how did you? Let's just transition a little bit. So you had an injury.
Sure.
You did firefighting. You did these couple other things. Now, how did you get into doing what you're currently doing?
You're talking about with Peak Performance Chicago?
Yes, yeah. Let's jump into that a little bit and start diving into how did that all come about into your life? Because that's kind of like a little right-hand turn from what you were doing.
Yeah, so I'm still teaching, still coaching, and I love it. And I don't see myself leaving that. But one of the things that there's two things, actually. So I was at a seminar by Human Performance Project. Dr. John Underwood is a mentor of mine, and he's a great guy, and he's a physiologist, he's a scientist. He studies peak performance and how the body, responds to sleep and nutrition and drugs and all that kind of stuff. And when I was in one of his seminars, I was listening to stuff on lifestyle and about alcohol, and I'm pretty transparent with my players, and let them know, I really think my injury was a little bit of pitching, but I think a lot of it was lifestyle oriented. I got caught up in some of the stuff that happens in college with the drinking and, learning about how, on a cellular level that impacts the body and how it impacts sleep and how it impacts repair and the muscles rebuilding and everything that happens in your sleep and how, not just sleep, but with alcohol, how that impacts your performance on the field. I was like, this is, kids all over the world need to hear this. Athletes all over the world need to hear this. And so I've just kind of been on a mission so that kids don't have to live the same story that I did, in regards to, being injured or not getting the most out of them, out of themselves, I should say. So that was one big thing was kind of being, having the light bulb go off over my own head, when listening to Dr. Underwood talk about lifestyle and its impact on performance. Cause you just think when you go to college, everyone drinks. And so everyone, your teammates are drinking, they're all partying, and it's just kind of what you do. It's college.
Right.
And in reality, it's really not. And especially if you have, big goals for yourself on what you want to do with even if it's not to play professionally, if it's just to be the very best college player, whatever level of college you're playing, you've got to have a lot of things lined up. And then the other part came when I was back and I was coaching in baseball. I got a hold of, Ken Ravizza and Tom Hansen's first edition of Heads Up Baseball. And reading through that, I was like, holy crap, man, I didn't know anything about this. This is great. And so I started incorporating that when I was an assistant coach, and the kids, took a little bit to get them to buy in with it. But once they were bought in, they were like, man, this stuff really works. And so the mental game has been a huge part of my life for the last 12 years, trying to teach it to my players and, not just on the field, but also how it can parallel life and how these skills will benefit them down the road after they hang up their spikes one day. And then the leadership stuff was kind of my experience as a coach. It seemed like anytime we had a, underachieving year in any sport, even when I was an assistant coach, the common out is, this was just a bad group of seniors, no senior leadership, and I hear it from other coaches at other schools. Yeah, no, it didn't have a great year. Seniors, wasn't a great, group of seniors. They didn't, what wasn't really good leadership from them. And then I used it myself after a year and then I used it again another year. And after I used it that second time, I kind of had this self-realization. It's like, it's my fault that my guys aren't good leaders. I'm not teaching them how to be leaders. I'm telling them that I expect them to be leaders, but most of them don't know what the heck leadership is. They hear it and they're told they need to be it, but they're not really sure what that looks like. And so I kind of started to really study leadership, and go through some classes and do a ton of, reading and try to help develop my kids as leaders and develop other athletes as leaders, as best that I can.
Now, I read on your website you cover three main topics. Being a leader, which you talked a little bit about now. Also, the lifestyle, which you had touched on, and also competing. Can you talk a little bit? I know you just gave us a little bit for the lifestyle. With lifestyle choices with drinking alcohol and drugs, things like that. Leading,
right.
You gave a couple things on it, but could you touch also on competing? And even if you left some stuff out for the leadership and the learning how to live correctly as an athlete, to make your success better or more optimal. Can you talk about those three areas there and how you teach those things?
Yeah. So, I have my own little philosophy on peak performance. I think a lot of it has to do with leading, mental skills, and living a lifestyle of greatness. And so those are three of the six pillars that I believe in. The other three pillars are skill acquisition, right? And that's what coaches do every day with their players, with drills and things like that. Sport IQ, knowing what to do in different situations, situational awareness, and then strength and conditioning. So there's those three, and then leadership, mental skills, and lifestyle. And so I tend to focus a lot on, with Peak Performance Chicago, I tend to focus a lot on the last three, leadership, mental skills, and lifestyle, because I don't feel like those are always covered. And there's a lot of time involved with all this. And so managing the time is crucial as well. But as far as leadership goes, so I define leadership very simply as influence. John Maxwell defines it that way. I've adopted his simple definition of leadership: influence. Everybody has influence. So everybody can be a leader. You don't have to be the best player on your team. You don't have to be the captain. You don't have to be the star. Everybody can lead, and they got to understand that people lead different ways. There's different types of leaders. Some leaders will lead by example on the field. Some leaders will serve their team. I had a player a couple years ago that, started out in our rotation and then ended up, unfortunately, not producing the way we needed him to. And so he spent a lot of the season on the bench. And to his credit, he still became a great teammate, and he was just serving his team, and he was leading, and he was showing, and then that was contagious because you saw other guys start to kind of do what he did and model after him. So everybody can be a leader. It's just a matter of finding out what your style is. And I take players and teams through a little self-questionnaire, self-assessment on their leadership types. And, they kind of get to figure out, where do I best fit, in my leadership style. And then we talk about other things like serving, integrity, communication, understanding people, listening skills, all those types of things too. And there's different activities that I'll do with teams and players and in workshops and things like that on the leadership side of things. Does that answer the leadership side?
Absolutely.
Okay. And then when I say compete, we want to get our players to compete at the highest level that they can. And I think I heard, if you haven't heard his podcast, Dr. Andrew Jacobs out of Kansas City is a sports psychologist and runs a weekly segment there, and his podcasts are really, really good. And he always says if you have two athletes that are the same physical, but one has better mental skills or one's mentally stronger than the other one, that one is going to be the better player. And so we're already working on strength and conditioning, right? Everyone's already doing that. And everyone's working their skills, physical skills, but what are we doing to work our mental skills? What are we doing to work our self-talk, our confidence? How are our goals? Are they process-oriented? Are they result-oriented? Self-awareness. I believe self-awareness is the foundation of the mental game. You got to know who you are. You got to be aware of who you are, how you feel. And once you're self-aware of yourself and your skill set, that can lead to being more emotionally aware of how you're feeling at certain times, situational awareness in different phases of the game or the competition. And so I'm a really big fan of self-assessment. I know some people aren't, but I'm a huge fan of self-assessment. And let's walk through some questions. Let's talk. Let's process through, and let's see where you're at in this particular skill, in this particular area of the mental game, so we know where we can improve it and where we can go from there.
Awesome.
And then lifestyle is big. Without it, without all three of these, in addition to the other three, not that you can't be good, but you just can't be the best version of yourself, and that's what we want to get out of our kids. And so lifestyle is big. I'm taking a nutrition certification class so I can give my athletes better nutritional information about what to eat, when to eat, tailoring certain eating plans to them, pre-practice food, pre-game fuel, all that kind of stuff, abstaining from drugs. Obviously, I'm sure a lot of us have seen the headlines with vaping and what that's doing to kids. marijuana, smoking cigarettes, drinking alcohol, and then sleep. If I had to pick one, I would say sleep is my favorite one, because it's in their control mostly. Sometimes it does have to, they do have to manage their time a little bit better. But sleep is so crucial. I mean, we could do a whole nother podcast just on sleep, and the importance of it. But high school athletes, really any athletes from age 13 or 14 to about 24, the magic number is 9 hours and 15 minutes a night of undisturbed sleep. I want to say I think the average high schooler gets about 6 hours and 45 minutes of sleep. And, when you don't get that 9 hours and 15 minutes, they're really missing out on the biggest REM cycle, like the money maker REM cycle of their sleep, where, all the neurons firing and repair happening and storage this and compartmenting this and, developing this skill and repairing these muscles. Releasing hormones, testosterone and HGH that we release naturally. If you're waking up at 6:45, you're missing the biggest part of your sleep cycle. The biggest gains that you'll get from sleep, we're missing if we're not getting that 9 hours and 15 minutes. Well, that's just like a Cliff Notes version of all that stuff. Let me know if you want me to expand on anything.
No, I love it when you had mentioned about sleep because, it's just compared to, I sound like I'm talking like an old timer here, but even when we were younger, as kids, it was a lot easier to go to sleep back then because we had 13 channels on our TV that we had to stand up and actually turn it on. And then if we had a cable box, that was in one room of the house. So we didn't have it in every single room in our house. And if we had an entertainment system, it was Nintendo and you had to play. And if you lost, you had to start at the beginning. So you didn't want to turn it back on for another 2 weeks because you were so mad. So it was easy. Like those distractions, they weren't what they are today. Today we have all of what I just said times 100 in terms of the amount that you can get access to on your phone. Plus you have better graphics and brighter colors and all this stuff. So today it's so much more difficult to get that sleep. Even as an adult, I can say right now, I'll go and lay in my bed and I'll tell myself, well, I'm going to read a book. And then I'll be like, I wonder how this post did, or I wonder how whatever. And I go and look at it and here I am not reading my book anymore. I'm now staring at my phone.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, you're right on all that. It really comes back to self-awareness, right? Being self-aware of where you're at in your night. They typically say you want to try to get 2 hours of screen-free before you go to bed. I know that doesn't happen for a majority of people, but at least an hour. And then just being self-aware of where your stuff's at, right? I never had a TV in my room growing up. And I don't have a TV in my room now. My kids will not have TVs in their rooms. If your kids have smartphones, making sure that they're charging them out in the kitchen somewhere where they can't be texting all night or surfing the internet or, that kind of stuff at the house. And if they're watching TV or playing video games, I know it's a little funny to think about, but I think there was an article a couple years ago. Oklahoma State's football team did this with their guys. They got them Blu-ray light blocking glasses.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they asked their players, and I don't know if they required it or how they monitored it, but they said that they wanted their players after 7 o'clock p.m., if you're in front of a screen, typing a paper, watching TV, playing video games, to be wearing those glasses. Just because the blue light given off of the TV and the screens really messes with your circadian rhythms and really messes up kind of all the sleep chemicals that you got going on to get a full night's rest.
It's crazy to me in such a short period of time. There's been sleep studies that have happened for years, but some of these theories, and I guess just to kind of stay on it for another minute, so much information in the past, I'd say 5 to 7 years about sleep cycles and everything you're talking about has come about. And it's come, maybe people knew about it, it wasn't mainstream. It wasn't on YouTube. It wasn't, freely available on the internet. And there weren't podcasts you could listen to, with people talking about it. Where, how much more information do you think can come from these things? Where do you see this at in 5 more years?
I mean, my personal opinion is I think we're just going to learn more. I mean, I think that we're scratching the surface. I mean, our bodies were created just absolutely amazing when you really think about it. You know, all the different processes that happen and all the different neuron connections and how everything functions. And I mean, I really think that we're just scratching the surface on especially central nervous system functioning in the brain on what sleep is doing for us. I mean, there's a bunch of studies out there talking about people who sleep longer or have full nights of sleep live longer, you know, just by, you know, all the processes that happen to the body and repair in the brain and repair of the body and immune system. And I mean, I really think that it's going to continue to grow. That field's going to continue to grow.
And the less sleep you have, I mean, the more at risk you are for things like dementia. My wife's father passed away very young from that. And, you know, they didn't find out until he was in his early 50s that he had sleep apnea. And, you know, that's a huge weight that's put on your brain to, you know, for oxygen and all that stuff. And,
Right.
you know, I know we're talking about sleep for a long time here, but it's important. I mean, it's obviously important.
And to jump back to what you were talking about, Joel, where you talk about lack of sleep, lack of, you know, taking good nutrition, whether that's, you know, drinking too much at night, staying up too late, potential drug use for some athletes, you know, by chance. I mean, you start compounding all these factors and you're kind of creating a perfect storm to not be able to perform at your highest or even at nowhere near your best. You know what I mean? So it's just one issue leads to another that just kind of keeps the diminishing your performance. And we all know that person from high school, man, that guy was a hell of an athlete. What happened to him? Well, you know, the things you're talking about here right now, I'm sure they wish they'd have known when they were 14 or 15. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, in a way, I'm that guy. You know, But yeah, I mean, like you said, I think that there's just starting to scratch the surface with that. I mean, I think just on sleep alone, studies have been done about injuries, and the injuries are higher for athletes who don't sleep as much. And I think it's going to continue to come out with more information, and it's crucial that our kids and these athletes know about it, so they know it's a choice. It becomes a choice. It doesn't become ignorance anymore that I didn't know. It becomes a choice. Am I going to, you know, take this seriously, or am I going to continue doing what I'm doing?
Now, how young are the student athletes that you're working with, and do you think there is a crucial time where all of this should be started to be taught? You know, whether it's by, you know, a coach like you or teachers or parents. You know, for the parents listening right now or the coaches, I mean, is there a crucial point that they should start, you know, applying all of these things and teachings to kids?
Yeah, I mean, I work with, you know, primarily high school, college, and, you know, some professional and semi-pro athletes. I think really starting to hit the performance and lifestyle stuff up, you know, in junior high is important, but the leadership stuff, I mean, you can start with your kids at 3 years old. I mean, as far as making sure, you know, you're helping around the house and looking people in the eyes when you're talking to them. And, you know, if you see someone struggling, offer to help your teammate, you know, commitment levels, you know, like my son's in soccer right now and, you know, he's 5 and he goes out there and, you know, some days like, I don't really want to do soccer. I'm like, well, that's fine, bud. If you don't want to do this next year, you know, you don't have to, but you've made a commitment to your team and we're going to follow through with our commitment and we're going to go to soccer. And I expect you to give your best effort. You don't have to score a bunch of goals, but I do expect you to try hard. And then we'll come home and, you know, you got one more practice and 2 more games and then soccer season's over. And if you don't want to do it next year, you don't have to, but you've committed to your team. And so just those little leadership things, I mean, I think there's opportunities, you know, around us all the time that we can kind of teach from to our children.
And just to build off of that kind of, and, you know, I mean, I've been coaching baseball for 12 years now. I mean, the culture that's around youth sports and parents really are the problem. It's disgusting. The team hopping, no commitment level, no sense of like growing and development. It's just what's best for my kid right here and right now. no long-term thinking, just very short-term satisfaction. Like, oh, my kid didn't play enough today or yesterday, or you got one at bat, and like, I think a lot of those things are hindering kids and athletes, and parents don't have any idea that they're actually doing that to their kid. I just, when we grew up, there was stability around your community, around the teams, and you kind of knew what to expect. And I think that's something that's being lost through all sports, and you can blame travel culture for it if you want or whatever, but I just feel that parents are really harming the young athletes of today.
Yeah, and if your team sucked, you stayed on the team, and hopefully you're on a different team next year.
Yeah, you figured it out. No.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely think that there's areas that everyone can improve in, players, coaches, parents. But the culture, the tone of it's really being set at the professional level, right? I mean, when we were younger, you saw guys, they played their whole career for a team, and there wasn't really a whole bunch of hopping or getting together. But you look across professional sports now, and that's, the model that is out there.
1 year contracts.
Yeah, football, basketball, baseball's not as bad, but it still exists. But I mean, you look at the holdouts, guys in year 2 of a 5-year contract. No, I'm not playing. Yeah. I'm not going to honor the contract that I signed. I'm just going to sit out. And it's just that type of tone that message is being sent, to parents, and the kids are seeing it, and it starts to become a culture, which it already is, right? With the way social media is, it's a me culture. What's in it for me? How is it going to benefit me? And I'm agreeing with you guys that it is an issue, and it's to be honest, I don't really know how to combat it, except just to try to raise my kids the best that I can, and hopefully, some of the stuff that I teach them sticks.
Now, let's just state, you just brought it up a little bit, and this is something I was thinking about. What has the impact of social media had on the type of work that you are doing now? I mean, is it a positive, or is it a place where, I guess maybe I'm looking at this 2 ways. It's positive because there's resources that kids can go find for free. And then I look at it negatively because there's probably things that are happening to some of these young athletes, or even, semi-pro athletes, that they're getting whatever said to them through, if they read the comments, one way or the other. So what do you think the impact of social media has had on the type of work that you're doing now?
It's got a big impact just in life in general. Athletes today, for the majority, are more self-centered than previous, like we talked about. But I also think it plays a lot into their identity as people. They start to identify who they are by the amount of likes that they get on certain posts. They take comments, personally. And, I think, the data is out there and the research is out there about social media and depression and anxiety and, all those things. And I'm not a therapist, so I don't deal with the anxiety or the depression. That's not my lane. But I definitely think that it impacts players. And although it's not my lane, I still have to understand it and try to find kids the right resources and help to deal with it, so that they can, just live a purpose-filled life and a life that is enjoyable to them. Social media also, I talk to athletes a lot about, what they post, right? What they post is essentially a profile of who they are, and not just what they write and what they post themselves, but also what they like. I tell athletes, when you press the like button on a post, you're endorsing that. You're saying, I like this a lot. I'm going to put my stamp of approval on it. And what you retweet or you repost says, I agree with this enough that I'm going to, even though I didn't write it, I'm going to repost it. And that, starts to kind of, culminate, who you are. And schools are college admissions teams are looking at social media stuff. I know there's a couple of football programs out there that they have graduate interns that are or grad assistants rather that are in there, and their only job is to look at recruits' social media pages. Find out what kind of person this is. What are they putting out there on social media? And employers are doing it too. Before I hire this person, even, what are they putting out there? Is this the type of person that's going to fit our culture? Is this the type of person that has the same values that we have for our business? And, I think a lot, the teenage brain, right, isn't fully developed. And so they do a lot of things reactively and emotionally. And it's come back to bite some professional athletes, right, in the news the last couple of years. And it came back, unfortunately. I don't know. You guys get the story about the kid from the Iowa State game, the Iowa State game. Did you guys hear about that?
No.
So, game day was at the Iowa State game, and this kid held up a sign, and it said, low on beer money.
Oh yeah, yeah, yes.
And he put his Venmo up there, and he started getting money, and he had I read the article. He had about $1,600 that was donated to him for it said Busch Light,
Busch Light Fund.
So he got $1,600 donated to him, and then he was like, this doesn't feel right. So he kind of said, hey, I'm going to buy one case of Busch Light, and then I'm going to donate the rest of it to the Children's Hospital there in Iowa City. And people just started jumping on board. Venmo started matching whatever he was going to raise. Busch Light said they were going to match whatever he raises. And the pot, I think his Venmo account is going to be closed at the end of the month. The last time I checked, the money that he's donating to the hospital is like $1.16 million.
Yeah,
it's impactful.
Yeah.
But here's the sad part to that story is that when he was in high school, he posted something that was who Daniel Tosh is, the comedian?
Yes.
Yeah, he likes to toe that line and cross that line a lot. And so in high school, he said something, about one of the skits or one of the bits that Daniel Tosh did and put it out on social media. And someone dug it up, and it got brought up. And, the kid handled it great. 24 years old, he's like, hey, I made mistakes when I was in high school. Here's what I posted, 2 years ago talking about, how, acceptance and everything is important, racially and ethnically and demographics, all that kind of stuff. And, he's like, people change and people grow and people learn from their mistakes. And it's just a shame, though, that, right, something that you put out in high school is going to someone's going to try to dig that up and dampen this awesome thing that he's doing for these kids in this hospital.
Yeah, that's a shame. Like something from 15 years ago is supposedly going to define who you are today as an adult. I don't know.
Right. Gosh, can you imagine, all the stupid things that we've done in our past, if that was, put online and kept there forever? It's like, man, you can't make a mistake.
And for me, I think the most disheartening thing about this whole thing with social media and all that stuff, take the thing with Josh Hader, which was terrible during the biggest moment of his career in the All-Star game last year. His parents were there; they'd escort him out of the stadium. You know what I mean? Obviously, what he had said back then was not right, but what is the road to redemption? It's there's nothing in between. You can never evolve. You can never. Whatever you did whenever you were at the time is what people want to criticize you for however long later. And for me, where it's tough is there is got to be some road. Like you said, this kid, here's what I said 2 years ago. Here's what I said 4 years, however it was. But you do evolve. If you're not evolving as a person, well, then you really have an issue. That's a bigger issue, I think, than that. So, but true class by the individual to take that money, take something and turn it into a positive like that.
For sure.
Now, just to kind of pull away from technology real quick, you had mentioned a book earlier that you had liked, you read, and you thought it was great, something you could apply to, coaching and things like that. You also brought up John Maxwell. I'm a reader. I was told long ago that readers are leaders. And I love that. So I thought, okay, well, I'm gonna keep reading. So the books I love reading the most are ones that are on self growth and self improvement, things like that. Can you name a couple of books for those of our listeners who are big readers that want to kind of read something in their leisure that might help them get on the right path to leadership?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100% with that. Leaders are readers, and you're always trying to grow. And as a leader, being humble and learning from anybody, right? Learning from your kids, learning from books and other people in your profession. And so some of the books, because I listened to your podcast before and thought this would come up, so I made a little list here of some of my favorites that I've read in the last year or so. So the book Legacy by James Kerr. 15 lessons in leadership. So it's about the New Zealand All Blacks, the rugby team, and kind of how they've set their culture. And they said that they're said to be the best sports franchise in sports world history.
Wow.
And just kind of what they do and the culture that they have and the leadership lessons from them was a great book. The Leading Brain. I can't remember the authors of that book off the top of my head, but just about how the brain works and how you can use it to make you better, make you happier. It was really well written, a lot of great information in there. A Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor E. Frankl, about his experience in concentration camps during the war, was just a powerful read, short read, but very powerful, about what he went through in those concentration camps in Nazi Germany. The Soul of a Team, Tony Dungy, that one just got released over the summer. Great book there about developing culture in a team. And then the last two that I got for you, Why We Sleep, by Matthew Walker. I'm about 3 chapters in, and my mind was just like exploding with all the information that he was giving. So I had to take a break from that and get back to it. But it's just phenomenal about, why do we sleep? What's the purpose of sleep? Why is it so important? Why are we so not really educated about it and don't really know much about it? And so he brings to light a lot of good things there. And then the last one I have for you is the book Endurance. I can't remember the author of that one off the top of my head, but it's about the 1915 Shackleton voyage to the Arctic, and just the story behind it and the leadership qualities that he showed during everything. Not one guy and his ship died as they're trying to trek across the Arctic after the ship gets stuck in between some ice floes, and just a crazy what these guys went through, and the ability for Shackleton to kind of see things and make calls and make moves, and phenomenal book.
Awesome. I appreciate all of those. I wrote them all down as you
You'll
were
keep
going.
Dan busy for the next 6 months.
Actually, I just watched a documentary not too long ago within the past year about that same voyage. So
It's crazy. The book reads like a movie. Literally I couldn't put it down.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, here's a great topic, and Dan's big into this. I know it is. This is important to him. But I find it important as an athlete, and through my coaching, I try to develop these patterns and routines. So for you, what do you feel is a good routine that can help the athlete throughout the course of a day? Is it kind of just walk us through what you think an optimal routine for the morning to get started for the day would be for an athlete?
Yeah, so a lot of it's going to depend on what time school starts. A lot of times, like our school, we start school at 7:30 in the morning. So to have a routine, they're really going to have to be on top of their time management, right? They're going to have to really manage their time during the day with their extracurriculars, when they get home for dinner at night, homework. Kids are very overwhelmed with activities and AP classes and all these, they're pulled in so many different directions. But if possible, I would say 3 things. Waking up and doing some type of centering. So whether it's mindfulness, whether it's reading the Bible and praying, doing something to kind of start your day that way mentally. Second is eating breakfast. I know a lot of kids don't eat breakfast, and making that part of your morning routine, I think is vital to fueling your body for the day, and jump-starting your fuel, right? Food is fuel for your body, and you want to make sure you're putting in good stuff so your body can perform. And then thirdly, I would say oh man, I'm blanking out. Reading, some type of workout if you can, even if it's real light, even if it's just doing some push-ups, just to get some blood flow to the brain and get you moving for the day. If you could do those three things, and a fourth one just popped in my head, if there's a way to journal, I encourage the clients that I work with to start a gratitude journal. Wake up in the morning and write down three things that you're thankful for or that you're grateful for. Really kind of helps start your day on a positive note. It can be simple as I'm really thankful that the sun came up today. I'm really thankful that I have running water or a toilet to use. And then obviously as they go, they can get a little bit deeper as certain things come up. But I would say a mixture of those four things would be ideal.
Awesome. Now, on your site, if you could talk about your website address and also the membership for someone that is looking for some mentorship. I did see there was a membership tab down there. Can you talk to our listeners about what a cost to be coached would be and what they would expect if they decide they would like to get some mental coaching?
Yeah. So I do private training. I charge $120 a session, and I price that pretty low based on what I gathered from other coaches, other psychologists, because I want it to be somewhat affordable to everybody. And one of the things that I wrote down here is, if it's okay with you, anyone that listens to your show, within the month after it's airing, I'll give them 50% off of their first session if they want to give it a shot.
Yeah, that'd be excellent.
So that's something that I'd be willing to do if they just emailed me, mentioned the Going Yard podcast within a month after it airs. I'll give them 50% off the first session, just so they can kind of get a feel for what it's about. I can almost guarantee that they're going to want to come back for more because we're going to dig into some things they probably haven't really experienced or thought about before. And so, like I said, I try to make it as affordable as possible, but I also do a lot of prepping too. So although the sessions are about anywhere from 40 minutes to an hour on the long end, but typically about 40 minutes, 45 minute sessions, I do a lot of prepping too for each client. So where are we at? We do some self-analysis that sets up the next one so I can make sure I get the right evaluations and that we're talking about the right things and we've got the right setup for them to succeed. So there's a lot of work behind the scenes that goes on. It's not just getting on the phone and just kind of winging it. There's a lot of prepping that goes into each client so that I can make sure that I'm giving them the very best experience possible.
That's excellent. And we'll put that 50% off in our show notes as well.
Cool.
Just so people can see that right away. They see and we'll have where they can just click on your name and go right to your website.
Awesome.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks for offering that. I hope
no
people
problem.
take advantage of it. A lot of good stuff from you. Here's a good one. I think that ties well into what you're about and what you're kind of doing. If you could go back and tell your 15, 16-year-old self anything, what would that be? And what would that conversation be like?
I would have to say, I would probably say, don't let your past impact your future. And I say that because in high school, although I was fortunate to experience success in high school, I didn't have the strongest, friendships and relationships. And when I got to college, that was kind of a fear that I had. I was like, well, if I don't, do what these guys are doing, then I might be on the outskirts again. And so that kind of impacted some of the choices that I made in college as far as the lifestyle things go. Don't let your past define who you are and impact your future. And then be different, right? Be on a mission and be so committed to your mission and your goals that that's what you live for. Not for the temporary pleasures that other things can bring, but dedicate yourself and really stay steadfast to what you want to accomplish. Those would be the things I would say to myself.
Excellent. Now, was there anything that maybe we didn't touch on that you just wanted to cover and words of wisdom for the listeners here that maybe we didn't quite go over, or something you want to reinforce?
I mean, just the importance of balance. I mean, you guys have done a great job, and again, I appreciate the opportunity to talk. But just the awareness of what it takes to be great. You know, a lot of times, you know, they see athletes in the limelight and guys drinking and partying and things like that, and like, well, they're playing professional sports, and you know, if they're doing that, then you know, it shouldn't have that much of an impact on me. And what we have to understand is that professional athletes, represent about 1% of the athletic population, right? And the ones that can get there with a poor lifestyle are freaks, really. I mean, they're just freak athletes. Like they're percent of the percent. And to really get there, and, you know, Saban was quoted, "It takes what it takes." Like, it takes hard work, it takes dedication, it takes a commitment to lifestyle and you know, the mental skills. Because when you look at like guys in the minor leagues for baseball, for example, everybody there throws hard, right? Every guy that's drafted throws hard. I'm speaking on the pitching side of things. But why doesn't everybody make it? Because it's more than just that. It's mental skills, it's lifestyle. And I really believe that leadership is a big part of it too. What kind of leadership skills do you have? What kind of communication skills do you have? So not anything that you guys missed, but just reinforcing, understanding really what it takes to make it where you want to make it.
That's awesome. What would be some of your goals in the next 3 to 5 years? You know, personally, professionally, what would you like to achieve?
So personally, I want to be a great father and a husband, first and foremost. I've got an amazing wife who is displaying mental toughness every day. She stays at home. We have 5 children, 5 and under. We have 2 sets of twins.
Wow.
And so we're in a grind area right now, and she carries a lot of it, and I just want to do a better job, you know, as far as, you know, personally supporting her and being a good father to our kids. We've got a 5-year-old, a set of fraternal twins that are 3.5, and then our boy-girl fraternal twins just turned 1 in July. So we're in the trenches right now, man.
Yeah, it sounds like it. You know, I have 2 kids. Tyler has 3. And that's, you know, that gets stressful, but I mean,
Yeah.
What's great is, you know, you could always, no matter how stressful it is, as long as you're doing what you can to be a good parent and you're leading them in the right direction. I mean, it's, you know, you'll have your moments, but man,
Yeah.
but I don't have 5 kids, but I mean, obviously sounds like you're doing a good job.
I'll say when they outnumber adults, it gets tough. So God bless your wife for the
my
work
goodness.
she's putting in.
Oh my goodness.
It's a badge of honor.
Yeah, no, she's great. And if she ever listens to this, I love you and you're awesome. So,
thanks for giving him an hour to do this with us too.
Yeah. Well, the timing was great because the kids are sleeping. So it worked out real well. But professionally, you know, I still want to teach and coach. I love being in the classroom. I love the kids that I work with at our school. I try to impact them and influence them the best that I can. It's a place that I really feel that I need to be. But I really would like to build up, you know, continue to build up my one-on-one client base so I can help impact athletes all over the place. I want to write a book or 2. And then eventually, I mean, I've already been fortunate to go around to different places, but I really want to just go around the country when I can, right, when I have time, and just help influence young athletes to be the best they can. And hopefully, you know, I always say when I do speaking engagements and I'm talking with, you know, an auditorium full of athletes, I'm speaking to an audience of 1. If I can just impact 1 kid every time I talk, it's worth the time. And you know, hopefully that's something I can continue to do and build on as I get more into this.
That's beautiful, man. I love it. I really love it. Now, who would you, I know you've run across a bunch of people, a lot of influences, a lot of mentors in your life. Who would you recommend that we bring on to our show to talk either baseball or the mental game? somewhere along that lines that you think that would add value to our show and for our listeners?
I listened to your one podcast with Hannah, and she recommended Lauren. I think her last name's Johnson now, but it was Abarca, Lauren Abarca, the mental coach for the Yankees. I've had the pleasure of connecting with her, and she's been really good, really big influence on me. And a couple other people that I have in mind, Paul Bello is the head high school coach at Palatine High School in Illinois. And he's been a great mentor of mine and a really sharp guy when it comes to the game of baseball. Rich Benjamin is the head baseball coach at Indiana Wesleyan. He was here in Illinois at the University at Judson for a while, and he's full of wisdom and knowledge and a great friend and great person, great coach. And one more would be Kyle Nelson. He is a high school coach in Illinois as well. He runs a podcast called Cornerstone Coaching, and just doing good things for the game and for kids and coaches. So those would be four of them off the top of my head.
Awesome.
That's fantastic. Thank you for that list. We got a lot to work with now. Excited about a couple of those. I love the high school coaches. I mean, just because I've been there and done that, and I love listening how other guys or even girls have done it, women have done it over the years, and the different cultures in the different areas, and the different influence that football may have on another sport in this area, and soccer may have. So I always find it interesting to see the dynamics that high school coaches are working with, honestly. So thanks for those recommendations.
Yeah, no worries.
Where, Joel, can people find you online? Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Plug your website if you can here. That way people can get a hold of you in any way possible.
Yeah, so for Twitter, I'm at peakperform_shy. So peakperform_shy, CHI. Instagram, it's just my name, Joel Pelland, for Instagram. And then my website is peakperformanceshy.com. And then email is peakperformanceshy@gmail.com. So those are where people can find me online. I try to keep up. I try to do a skull session Saturday. So Saturday mornings, I try to get up and make a video and talk about some of the mental games, some nutrition stuff, sleep stuff, just things that people can use to benefit themselves on the field in competition or in life. So I try to stay active on those as best I can. I'm not the best when it comes to social media, but I'm trying.
Hey man, it's a learning process. That's what we found out through this whole podcast business here. So you're doing great. We love what you're doing. I do have one more question for you. It's one of my favorites. I'm a musician, so I feel like music really tells a lot about a person, especially in the competitive mode. So if you had one at bat or one pitching appearance in the major leagues, what song would you choose as your walk-up song out to the field?
So I was prepared for this one too, because I've heard you ask this before, and I think it's interesting. It's an interesting question because I think people's song choices would change over the course of their life depending on what stage of life they're in.
Right.
And right now, I would say that my walk-up song or my walk-in song from the bullpen or starting would be "Blessings" by Lecrae. It just speaks a lot about what I believe and what I go through. And one of the lines is, "If I ever took a loss, I learned a lesson." And that really speaks a lot to how I feel about life, how I feel about athletes in sport. That no failure, no loss is a loss unless you don't learn from it. And if you can continue to learn from mistakes, then they're not failures. They're learning opportunities and opportunities to grow.
That's fantastic. We really appreciate you coming on here with us, Joel. We wish you the best of luck.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I wish you the best of luck with Peak Performance Chicago and with your family. We wish all the best to you guys. And then also, you get that book going or those books out. Let's get you back on the show. We'll talk about it.
All right, sounds good. If there's any way I can serve you guys in the future, don't hesitate to reach out. I'll do whatever I can.
Excellent. Thanks, Joel.
Greatly appreciate it. Wish you nothing but the best for the business, for the family, for yourself personally. This has been a fantastic conversation, and really appreciate your time talking about these topics because so many of them aren't discussed enough, I think. So thank you for doing it.
Yeah, I really appreciate you guys and what you're doing for the game, what you're doing for athletes, and Have a great one.
Thanks, Joel. See ya.
Thank you.
I just bought a car, cash money. I ain't even trying to brag on it. I just tell it how it really is. I ain't tripping, ain't feeling this. I ain't saying I deserve nothing. I'm just trying to talk about the benefits. I've been punching in the clock.
All right. Hope you guys enjoyed, guys and gals, enjoyed that episode with Joel Pelland. A lot of good information there. We'll make sure we put all of the details in our show notes for him with that 50% off. I think that's a great deal for sure. I think you get a lot out of it. So, as always, you can find us on all things social media at Going Yard Podcast and on Twitter at GY Podcast. And if you like what we're doing week in and week out and you want to help support the podcast, check out our Patreon. Go to patreon.com/Going Yard Podcast. And you can find out all the ways you can help us out week in and week out.
Yes, we greatly appreciate your support and everything that we do. You can find all those links that Dan was talking about on our website, goingyardpodcast.com. And you can also like and subscribe to all of our podcasts. That way, whenever we post a new one on a Tuesday or a Friday, it automatically downloads and you can listen to it in the car, on the way to work, in the gym, wherever you listen to the GYP at. You will be the first to get it. So thanks for doing that. We appreciate it.
That's right. So that's a wrap for this episode. So from all of us here, including Joel Pelland and Peak Performance Chicago and all of us here at the Going Yard Podcast, I'm Dan.
And I'm Tyler. See ya.
Later.